suddenly knows someone injecting something that they found on the internet. A peptide they can't pronounce, a protocol copied from the comment section, and somehow it all gets labeled biohacking. Hormones and peptides, they went mainstream faster than education ever could. Social media made access feel easy, and medical nuance didn't come with the algorithm. So the real question is, are we optimizing health or are we gambling with it? Welcome to another episode of In the Gray Area with Rev Health. I am Britni.
I'm Travin.
Let's get into it.
You used that word I love again, biohack.
Oh yes, you love that one.
Everyone's a biohacker these days. I'm
Yes.
still not even sure what that means.
I know every time I hear Zarina, she's always like, biohacking. I want biohacking. And I'm like, don't let Travin hear you say that.
Well, I want to hear. I want to hear someone explain to me what exactly biohacking means and what qualifies and what doesn't.
Well, it's definitely a word we hear all the time.
Yeah.
So, we use the word wild, wild west a lot, which I actually, the first time I ever heard that was with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. She mentions that, especially with peptides and stuff. But even with hormones, we see that a lot. A lot of times we have patients that come in that are already on protocols with other people.
Yeah. Well, everyone thinks they're an expert because they follow someone on social media, that talks about, whatever certain protocols. And it's like, it goes back to that confirmation bias that people have to where whatever information you hear first is what you think is fact or what you think is accurate, or whoever you look up to and whatever information they're telling you is accurate. And so it's hard when someone comes to us for help, but they think they know everything at the same time. And that can get super frustrating. But, it goes back to social media, which, I have a love-hate with social media, mostly hate. I think it's so ridiculous these days, but it's like, it is a good place to get information, but there's so much bad information out there.
And it's confusing.
It's confusing to know, what's accurate and what's not. And so again, like, that's why I go back to just evidence-based protocols and evidence-based medicine, because we know that that's accurate versus, a doctor prescribing an Estradiol, which is zero evidence-based at all, but it's the popular thing to do. And most doctors do it.
Yeah. What can be frustrating too is I know people will come to us and they want to work with us. They're on regimens with other people and then we switch it up. And there is a process still of, the balancing, the regulating, and finding that new normal. So overcoming some of the things that they've already learned from other providers or clinics too at the same time.
Yeah, that's hard. It's we see that from patients and from providers too, with, trying to learn new things. Because a lot of them, what they were taught, if anything about hormones, back in the day or whenever they went to medical school, is probably not accurate. Like when you think about things like testosterone causing prostate cancer or, increasing your risk of like cardiovascular disease, which used to be taught, which we know is not true anymore. But unless they're up on it,
they don't know.
They're down on it. They're going to be down on it. And so they don't know. And so that's how they prescribe. Yeah.
And that's a tricky one because I personally don't feel like I ever want to talk bad about their general practitioner, but at the same time, it's like, they probably have not specialized in this area more than likely. And so exactly that they're not up on like current data and studies and, overcoming the whole, which we just went through that whole thing of like taking off the black label for estrogen, which was amazing. But we also know that there is a motive behind that.
Yeah.
Like big pharma is coming out with something new. So that's a whole other thing that we still have to kind of overcome. I know that we see patients come to us, we get them optimized, and then they're like, oh, you'll be so happy to hear that like my doctor's going to take over my care and going to do everything that you guys do. And it's like, we can't say it enough that it is not the same. It's never going to be the same. As long as insurance is involved, you will not get the same care from your general practitioner as you are with a cash pay clinic that has your best interest in mind and is getting the training that they need.
Yeah. And yes. And so when your provider just kind of takes over, right, what we're doing or takes over our prescriptions and tries to just copy that, the other thing I want to point out is how hormone therapy is very nuanced, right? And it isn't just black and white. And so even if, they're copying that, a lot of these, if you're just a general practitioner, right, how much, let alone like what training you've had in hormones, like how much actual clinical experience do you have? Like how many patients have you treated? How many patients are you currently treating? Which we're, probably have worked with over 1,000 patients at this point, and Lisa has too. And it's like, it is so nuanced and you learn a lot of different how people respond differently and how to handle different situations. And so just because that protocol is working for that patient now and you're having your general practitioner take over it, doesn't mean it's always going to be that way, and doesn't mean that there's not going to be changes.
And it doesn't mean that you're going to get the same exact thing. Like
from the same pharmacy. Or,
yeah. And quality.
Well, if you're using insurance, you're definitely not going to get it from the same pharmacy. I mean, you're going to get commercial products that suck and they're not as effective.
Yeah. And we've seen patients come in, do 6 months with us, and then they have a friend who's going to like fill their prescriptions for them or whatever. And that in the beginning was really frustrating to spend so much time and stuff with this person that you feel like they don't necessarily see what you bring to the table. I mean, you and I, like we went through training with Lisa, we've gone through it again. Like we have literally done hundreds of hours of training. And so sometimes I kind of take that personal, but I also feel like sometimes just nothing is ever enough for certain people.
That's never going to be. I like the way I look at it. We both know how much it sucks to feel like shit.
Yeah.
Like we both have been there, and we both have spent years of like going through situations where we like our bodies do not feel good. And like, to me, there's nothing worse than that. Like that, if you don't physically feel good, like I think that's one of the worst like states to be in. And so if you're spending $200 to $300 with someone and they totally transform how you feel, right? You feel amazing again. Like, wouldn't you think this is enough of an investment to where I'm going to keep working with these people instead of like risking it to try to just like save some money and go work with a doctor and like hope that like you don't need any changes ever. Like you're just going to stay on that regimen and they're going to order you the same stuff. Like it's a couple hundred, like $200 or $300 a month. Like to me, that's like a no brainer.
I agree. But at the same point, like it's kind of sad to say, but I know you and I both have gotten to this. Lisa has too. Like when people come to us and they argue with us, or they say that somebody told them, or their general provider told them this and that, like we don't even argue with them anymore.
No.
And it's like, that's how we need to handle it, I guess. But it's also frustrating because we do know better. But it's like, once they start getting everybody involved, it's just.
I do not want to work with someone that says, oh, my doctor said, or my friend said, like, bye. I do not want to work with you, because like, that's just, it's frustrating. It's like, if you're coming to people for their like specialty, right? You should trust that process. We talk about this all the time. We don't need to beat that anymore, but it's like, it's not even worth it.
No. And it's hard because I really truly want to help like as many women. Like I know what it feels like to feel like you're in the dumps and to be struggling, but it's also like, we have that 6-month commitment, which is needed because it takes time to regulate and to balance. But a lot of people, I mean, it can take upwards of a year or even a year and a half to actually get things dialed in. And I was talking to a patient earlier today that she was like, she's been with us for almost 3 years, I think. And she was like, oh, I feel totally off all of a sudden, and that's prime example that it's not always going to be perfect. And everybody's different. You come into contact with different things. You have different levels of stress. You age still. So there has to be those changes that you're willing to make and understand that that's part of the process. Yeah,
I know. Again, we talk about it all the time, but it's so hard to beat that into people's heads. And people are stubborn. We know that. And people, people know best, right? I mean, and it's like, I get it. Like we all, no one knows your body better than yourself, but sometimes like, look, you're in this situation that you're in. So clearly you haven't been making the best decisions, like in regards to your health. So maybe you should listen to someone else who knows what they're talking about for a little bit, and just like said, just be open and trust it, and not be so stubborn, and just let someone guide you and then see how that plays out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wish it's easier said than done.
Yeah. But I mean, I know look, like I said earlier, like I know what it's like to feel really bad. And if I'm coming to someone and they're living the lifestyle and they're living the way that like I want to be at, like I'm going to listen to them. Same thing like we talk about like within business. Like if you're, there's certain people in our space that have been doing this a lot longer than we have, that are ultra successful and are thriving. And it's like, I'll take cues from them. Yeah. Like if they're like, hey, this is what I did at your point, this is like, you're going to listen to the people that are where you want to be at.
Yes, absolutely. More people do need to look at it that way, but unfortunately they don't. And we do see that when it comes to like the cost, that seems to be one of their number one questions. And so for me, if that's one of the first questions I hear, we're probably not the right fit.
Yeah. Well, and like we've talked about, like the cost is about to go up too. because it does get, I mean, the cost of hormones go up just like anything else. I mean, it's consumable. Like our costs go up all the time. And like, we don't pass those costs on to like an existing patient. Like if you're paying the price for hormones, we're not going to go, oh, like, thyroid's more expensive now. Like your cost is going to go up. New patients will have to pay like the newer cost, but we don't ever like make people pay more once they're paying a certain price. But like just with the amount of time that people seem to be taking from not only us and Lisa, and just a lot of people need a lot of attention, and it's caused a situation where we probably do need to increase our pricing to accommodate like the amount of time that needs to go in to a lot of people.
What also can be very, I feel like, I don't want to say difficult, but social media, when you jump onto TikTok, we talk about peptides are everywhere, influences are everywhere. The same thing happens for hormones too. Like I know that I'll jump on there and sometimes I see the same guy all the time that's like yelling at you about TRT and what doses you should do and don't go over this number and all these kinds of weird symptoms that can happen and stuff. And this is like part of that whole like wild, wild west thing that we talk about. It's like overcoming some of that. Well, it's like, I jumped on TikTok and such, who has like 20,000 followers said that my testosterone should not be over 900 and my testosterone's 1100. Like, I think I need to back off. Again,
yeah, it goes back to like I'm going to just only post studies. And I mean, it's like people don't care about that stuff. But I mean, again, going back to just there's things that are evidence-based and there's things that aren't evidence-based whatsoever. And again, like I'm going to always hang my hat on things that have RCTs, strong outcome studies, long-term studies, things that there's tons of data behind, like why we're doing what we're doing versus, someone saying, oh, your level can't be over 900. There's zero data to support something like that. But like people say that kind of nonsense all the time because it's what they personally believe themselves. But like a belief doesn't make something true. And it certainly doesn't make it true for everybody.
Well, sometimes these influencers, though, are working for other people. And so they're just saying what they're told to repeat. And so that's really frustrating too. And it goes back to the whole like evidence-based and studies and what we know, because when we did our training last, somebody asked, like, Dr. Rouzier was like, everyone always wants to know, like, what's too high of testosterone? And I know you loved that because he was like, okay, fine, 10,000. 10,000 is too high. Like, if you want a number, I'll give you a number, 10,000.
Exactly.
Like, yeah. So, but if we were to tell some random person that comes and sits down something like that, it's going to freak them out because they have heard, because they came in and gave us this number that is supposed to be like the normal, healthy, high level of like, I think it's under 900 now, by the way. But so now we're just so stuck on that came from, sick medicine.
Yeah. I love Rouzier, and he's not saying, oh, everyone go out and get a 10,000 testosterone level. He's saying that to be funny and just to like illustrate his point of stop focusing on a number, like stop focusing on a number. And so he's just saying like, here, find 10,000, because he knows, no one's going to be at that level. So it's just like,
it's a joke.
It's a joke he says about, he uses it with estradiol with women, because they're like, well, what dose is too high? And he's like, 1,000, or what level? And he said 1,000 estradiol. Don't go higher than that. But it's to point out, like, don't worry about the number. Focus on the symptoms, focus on what else you're trying to accomplish, and let that guide your therapy.
And it's a difference like on age too, so that's so hard when we have patients coming in and then they end up reaching out to us and they're like, hey, I have a teenager that's going through all these different symptoms. And so then we're doing blood work with them. So when they come in and they're 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, we're not going off of a number. We're strictly going off of symptoms. There's certain things we're not even testing for because it doesn't matter what the 12-year-old's progesterone looks like. We know that her LH and FSH are flipped, and so we know she's got PCOS, and we know she needs progesterone. It's like completely different than what most people are taught.
I know, and it's strange to me because there's a lot of really intelligent people and doctors I see that I know are very intelligent that are saying things that just aren't true at all. And it's like, it's hard because it's either they don't know what they don't know, or they just have such a confirmation bias to what they were originally taught that they just can't get away from it.
Yeah. So stubborn. Lots of ego.
Well, there's tons of ego. I mean, yes. When you talk about doctors, there's massive egos involved, and it's fine, but it's hard when someone doesn't want to learn. Like I get super impressed from whether it's a doctor or anyone who is, has a voice or, an influence, and they can admit
when they're
wrong or that they've changed direction on something. And I've seen people do that where it's like, I used to take this stance, but the more and more research has come out, or the more I've looked into the research, like I think I'm understanding that actually this is the case, and it's like, I respect that a lot.
I agree. That's why that one doctor that I met with, with our, the oncologist, like forever, I am just like, he is the most humble, open-minded man, because as an oncologist, especially when he just straight up said, like, he's embarrassed that he doesn't even know anything about hormones, and he literally got four hours or something in school. Like, that's insane. That's what all of them get too.
Yeah.
And here they come on their like high horse and they're like, well, who are you? And he legitimately said that he went through all the studies that I gave him and how impressed he was, and how clearly there's so much for him to learn.
Yeah.
So I wish we saw more of that.
Yeah. And it's strange because I'm not far from an oncologist or to even pretend to know about that world, but it's interesting that you're only taught, 4 hours or half a day about hormones when you're dealing with hormone sensitive cancers all the time. Like that, it's crazy to think about that, but it's just, there's a standard of care and there's guidelines, and it's just, going down the list.
Yeah, I had somebody recently, one of our patients that's gone through breast cancer twice. She asked me, she's like, well, how much do you think is related to like kickbacks? And I was like, everything. What do you mean? Like the amount of money that these doctors make by like putting their patients through like chemo and radiation and stuff like that. A lot of times they're even like blinded. They're going through those steps. They're doing what they're taught. And
well, even like, we've heard Rouzier talk about how when he works with men with prostate cancer and that are going through like androgen deprivation therapy, they're on like the LHRH agonist to, suppress their testosterone. And, we know that you can achieve the exact same thing with giving a man estradiol and eliminating, the risk of, cardiovascular disease that you're getting from the LHRH agonist. And then also just the quality of life and how good you feel. You can achieve that with estradiol. But he has learned that he tells his guys to keep going in to the urologist, keep getting your, monthly shot or whatever it is, because that's such a bread and butter, money maker for them. And he was getting, those doctors were getting so upset with him by putting his men on estradiol, and they were no longer going in for that treatment. And it's just like, it's crazy to even think that, when it's like, okay, we're giving this something to these men that is harmful, that they don't even need, and we could just be giving them this cheap hormone, but it's such a money maker for them. It's and most people know that. Some people are blind to those kinds of things.
Yeah. I would like to think that there's a lot of good doctors out there that are not necessarily blind. They just, they don't push and go outside of that comfort of like what they've been taught.
I agree. And they're taught what they're taught. And it's even when we talk about, corruption and big pharma's influence, a lot of that even goes back to like the schooling and how much big pharma is involved even in the curriculum and like the teaching in terms of, pharmaceuticals and protocols and stuff that, it filters down, and like a provider going to medical school might not have anything to do with that or be corrupt or money driven, but it's just what they're taught. Yeah. And it just kind of filters down that way. Yeah.
Well, then they have a mentor too when they first come out of school that then teaches them what they were taught, and they have years and years of that too. Yeah. So it just trickles down. I know recently I had a girlfriend who was one of our patients reach out, and she was like all freaked out about her age being in like mid 40s. And she's like, when do I start adding in estradiol? She's worried about breast cancer, and she's worried about like uterus and protection, all that kind of stuff. I told her, I was like, after going through all the training that we've gone through, like I legitimately am not scared of cancer at all. But I would have been a few years ago just because that it's put in our face so much to where it's just fear driven all the time. And the reason is exactly that. Like it's all about money.
Yes. I mean, it's like I'm certain, like no one wants to get cancer at all, but it's like you said, and I think this is what you meant, that you're not going to be scared. Like you're not going to live your life in fear of getting cancer. Everyone's like, oh, this gives you cancer, this gives you cancer. And it's like, it is, you can't live like that at all.
no, but I truly feel that everything I'm doing is protecting and preventing from it. Well, I know, but still, I feel very confident in if anything came along, like I wouldn't be scared of it. Like we know how to treat these things, and we're doing everything we can to prevent and protect. And there's studies behind it that's been proven. So it's a totally different feeling than like the world we live in, even outside of medicine. Like everything is fear driven.
Yeah.
So especially this.
And people, a lot of people aren't going to understand that, but when we talk about our levels of things, and like, you know, people, especially when you mention your testosterone level, and I don't even mention mine, but even like the doses we take and the levels we take, I mean, a lot of that is purely for the prevention and protection of the, you know, cancers and things like, and disease states. And it's not about, you know, like, oh, I'm just doing this to do it, and I want to have like this super high testosterone for the hell of it. Like there's a reason behind it. And like, that's the big reason. And people they think of the feel good effects of hormone therapy and the quality of life and that stuff. And there's not a lot of talk on the back end of like how much they truly protect against a lot of these diseases.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, still at the end of the day, like for the most part, my body is always running really, really well, but I still get sick. I still have days I feel tired. I still am sore. Like, you know, it's like, it's not just going to be a fix all. And I think that we, a lot of times have a really hard time overcoming that with patients because they start on things initially, in the first month, they'll start to feel better. And then they have some plateau or something. And it's like, oh, my hormones aren't working.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to make changes, but also recognizing that you still have a life that you're living.
Yeah. I like real quick, I want you to go back to when you were talking about getting sore. And why don't you just go ahead and talk about how it's just because you've been working out with me again lately, and that's why you're so sore these days.
No, it's because our leg workouts.
You're welcome for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks. I know. Day 2 of dying over here.
Yeah, no, it's good. But yeah, it is the Wild West out there. And I wish that, like we say all the time, whether it's with us, whether it's with someone else, that whoever you're working with, you just trust them and listen to them, and, you know, be a good patient, right? Because that's how you're going to get the best outcomes. Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes we get a lot of, I don't even know what to call it, kickback, whatever, from people that are like, well, who are you guys? You're not doctors, you know? But the truth of it is like, we have our own stories. We had to be our advocates for our health. And that's where we saw a need for something different in this industry, just like overall of just helping people kind of get through their situations of like health crisis or whatnot. And I mean, we stand firmly behind WorldLink and the training that we put our providers through, the training that we constantly are going through and stuff. And I would just, even if it's not with us, like I would encourage everybody to find a WorldLink provider to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to hormones, like there's nothing better. There's no other option as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, you made the comment about like, we're not doctors and who are we? And it's like, we're not. And, you know, we aren't prescribing, we aren't treating, we aren't diagnosing, but there's a reason why we go through those courses. There's a reason why we just did it a second time. There's a reason why we're getting ready to do it a third time.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to do it. It's like, I think, you know, having this knowledge is so powerful, and it just makes us such a good resource for our patients. And there's a difference between, you know, a patient dealing with like a patient care coordinator that is just trying to help you, that has zero training, versus someone like us who's literally had, you know, exponentially more training than most other medical providers in the world of hormones and hormone therapy. And so I think it's a valuable asset that we do that. And like, we'll always continue to go through those trainings over and over and over again, even though it's the same training, but it's just like, it's so in depth and it's so much to learn that you have to do it over and over to really like get a grasp of all this stuff.
Yeah. And I think we both can agree that we love it every time. It's like, we'll listen to the same thing or similar and you get something new out of it every time. Or it's like, aha moment of like a certain patient that we've had. And we're like, oh, this would really help for this person. But that makes it nice too with the forum that we have and all of the different connections with people that have been in the industry for, you know, 10, 20, 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I know like this next series we're doing is the last time that Rousier is teaching it. And so like, we'll definitely not miss that. And I think we're lucky to be a part of that. And we're lucky to have like been able to go through these in the past, because people that aren't going to get to experience that, I think, are really missing out. And it's like it's kind of a piece of, you know, knowledge and a piece of education that I think is going to make this group of people kind of at a different tier and a different advantage than other people going forward.
Well, it changed us as like a company.
Yeah.
Completely. It was like a 180, you know? So I'm forever thankful, but I'm excited for this next year. And I'm super thankful that we got to go to the summit and even just like hear them in person and stuff too. That was amazing. So back to our Wild Wild West stuff. What are some other things you think? I think, you know, we talk about testosterone, but thyroid, I cannot beat that one enough. Like, it's so frustrating because we know what we're taught, we know what all the studies say, but like, that's one of our hardest ones. Like,
yeah, you know what else too? It's fun. Like, you know, we haven't talked about this much, but I was just thinking with the episode last week, we talked about, you know, black market with peptides and everything, and how, you know, now there's this push where they're trying to ban, you know, natural desiccated thyroid. And like, there's going to be a black market that exists for that. I promise. If people aren't allowed to get that through pharmacies anymore, like if they shut that down, and like, I know for us, like the alternative when it comes to prescribing is going to be, you know, T3, T4 combination, like compounded, thyroid. But as we know, like the natural desiccated thyroid is the preferred method and it's superior. And so it'll be interesting to see like what happens if that does end up going through.
I know. I hope it doesn't.
Yeah. But that will be part of this Wild Wild West if it does. Like, there's going to be a huge black market for that.
And you mentioned, like, you know, with RFK and all that kind of stuff, we're in a situation that we've never been in before. So hopefully we just continue in the same direction we've been heading, and we don't even have to worry about that. That would be best case scenario. You know, people are they're tired and they feel like they're so unheard, and, you know, and they're super frustrated going from doctor to doctor and doctor. So more than anything, I just really encourage people, like, and I know I say it all the time, but like, find somebody that you trust, somebody that you know specializes in hormones specifically, that knows how to read blood work, that can guide you in the direction that you need to go in, that you can actually commit your time, and know that financially this is your commitment, and you're committed to it, and what that looks like. Because a lot of times people come to us and it might even be a stretch to work with us. But, you know, we do have programs, like we can make changes, we can make adjustments, especially after the first year, especially for our women who are on a lot more things. We can put into maintenance programs after we get them optimized and stuff like that. But it's really, really important to know who you're working with. Yeah.
And like we always say too, that it is a relatively small investment. And I know, you know, a few $100s a month looks different to different people, but like we talk about a lot, and translate that into how much that will impact your life financially in terms of like working, especially if you're in like a sales driven like career. And we've heard that over and over from people that we work with, like in the real estate world, or with, you know, any sort of sales type of job, that like, man, like I am like crushing it ever since I've been like working with you guys. And like, I wake up like with so much more energy and so much more drive, and it's just
clarity.
Yeah. And so it's just like, we talk about, these are investments and so not only in your health, but there is a big ROI in a lot of areas in your life when it comes to just getting yourself to feel better.
Absolutely. I agree. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. If any of this hits home, I just really encourage you to reach out to somebody, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help in any way that we can. And like always, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time.